Ready to go now. This is trial one. Big field of three and they're away. And stepping away best, just a bit like Mum, goes to the early lead. My Dad Angus just danced away off the mark. He now hits his stride, and much the same for the sharp shooter. He started off a 20-metre handicap, and he's at the tail. So after a clean beginning, just a bit like Mum leads the way, and the margin is 20 metres. The stablemate second, My Dad Angus, and chasing hard a further 40 metres away at the tail, the sharp shooter, the scratching, is number 3, Fiery Rum. So they work towards the back straight now, approaching the mile marker, and just a bit like Mum leads the way. The margin is 10 metres. Second, My Dad Angus, and at least 80 metres away at the tail, the sharp shooter. The lead time, it's on the board. It came up in a pretty moderate 44.2, just a bit like Mum in front. Leads the way by 6 metres. My Dad Angus is second, and at least 70 metres away at the tail, the sharp shooter. So as they work off the back straight now, they have less than 1,400 metres to trot. Just a bit like Mum and Shane Graham dictate the terms, leading the way. The margin 6 metres. My Dad Angus is second with Doug Lee, and that margin to the sharp shooter who's back at the tail with Mark Ducks aboard. Working up to the end of the first section, leading the way, it's just a bit like Mum. She hasn't put a foot wrong to date. Leads the way in the first quarter of the final mile. It rolled over in 32.4, so it's a steady tempo being set by just a bit like Mum. Leads the way from My Dad Angus, and still chasing hard back at the tail, the sharp shooter. They come down the straight, they pass the judge and the bell, less than a circuit to run. Just a bit like Mum is doing it easily in front, leading the way, and the margin is still 6 metres. My Dad Angus is second, the sharp shooter, he's only 10 metres away, so he's been able to make up good ground. As they work towards the half mile marker, the second quarter, it rolls over in 31.7. So it's going to be a sprint home, and just a bit like Mum enters the back straight for the final time, leading the way. The margin is 5 metres. My Dad Angus is second, and still 10 metres away at the tail, the sharp shooter. Down the back straight final time, leading the way out in front, is just a bit like Mum. Still clear, the margin 5 metres. My Dad Angus is right behind it in second, and tacking on now the sharp shooter. Working up towards that far turn, 400 metres left to trot. The third quarter, it was 30.3, just a bit like Mum, leads the way. My Dad Angus comes to the outside. He's got something to offer. He's going up to challenge. He gets within a neck of the leader, and 10 metres away at the tail, the sharp shooter. They're at the top of the straight, and the sprint is well and truly on now. Cornering with the lead, just a bit like Mum. My Dad Angus is still there on the outside trying to close. A margin to the sharp shooter, just a bit like Mum, and My Dad Angus, just a bit like Mum in front. My Dad Angus is driving on the outside. The post is looming, and just a bit like Mum. Just a bit like Mum. Got in from My Dad Angus, the sharp shooter. Last quarter 30, 26.9 the mile rate. 26.9, 44.2, 32.4, 31.7, 30.3, 30. 44.2, 32.4, 31.7, 30.3, 30 seconds the final quarter. 26.9 is the mile rate, 26.9. 1, 2, 4 the result.